Hi, everybody. So my name's Jennings, and I was unfairly lumped in with all four of those great poets. As a poet, I'm more of what I'd call a songwriter, and over the years, I like to fancy myself somewhat as a cultural archivist. And I had the great pleasure of 20 years ago getting exposed to some of the local poetry and creative writing scene, mostly through the slam poetry competitions that the Big Sky Airy literary magazine was putting on. And sometimes they had public slams with cash prizes. And when you're 21 years old and have just discovered poetry, that's very exciting. And so it became somewhat of not just a competition, publicly, but also privately among me and my friends and actually my lovely wife. And I would go toe to toe on the slam competition mat. But really, that was kind of my entry into starting to see that there was this broader community in Missoula made up of writers and artists that had been there for a long time. And I started hanging out in the alleyway behind Butterfly Herbs, and people started saying, "Hey, you know who that guy who just walked by was? That's Dave Thomas," and I started to realize that there are these just mammoth writers who and when you're in your early 20s, when I was in my early 20s, it was just discovering the legends of the writers hanging out in Charlie B's and the old guard of the Missoula arts world, and that we are really lucky to be surrounded by that, and we lean on that pretty heavily today with and so does all of Missoula, on that cultural legacy that people like Mark Gibbons, David Thomas, Sheryl Noethe, and James J. have built for us. So last year in the spring, I had the crazy idea. I was trying to do a monthly record and zine that I was putting out. I really wanted to. It was National Poetry Month in April, and I wanted to do a poetry record. And so I got in touch with Mark. That's not Mark, but he's oh, there he is. Okay, and through the idea at him and between the two of us, he thought it was a great idea and pushed me forward on it, and then really did all the legwork of calling up the other poets and talking them into doing this crazy thing. And so over the course of a couple weeks, all four of them came over to my studio, and we recorded them reading poetry, and it was wonderful. And all four of them had said, "Oh yeah, we've never really done anything like this before." And so the more we worked on it, the more I felt it was really important to capture their voices and their actual delivery of their poems, because seeing them read were formative experiences for me that have pushed me to where I am now. So I think it's felt like it was important work. And since then we pushed on, wanted to make more copies of that record, because I think the first time we only made 17 copies, something like that, and they were squares. They were real weird. And so for just to explain a little bit further, I have some 1940s record cutting machines that I use to make records in my garage, and I do it one at a time with an experimental process. I also enjoy printmaking. So this is all here to celebrate that we have some records made, and if people want them, they can go home with you today. But every record is kind of unique because, like I said, I make them one at a time. It's a lot like printmaking. And so in that note, I also did letterpress printing on the covers of them, and then each disc is a one-sided picture disc that has a letterpress print that I've hand-painted and is facing up through the bottom of the disc. So what you see there, they all look a little different colors. And so if you want one, you can kind of go through and pick out your favorite color. There's only 37 of them. And yeah, like I said, I cut them in real time. So it means that all the poems that are on that record, at this point, I've probably heard them close to 100 times, which, and you know what? I love them. I love each one more every time I hear it. So all that being said, Mark told me that I had to play some songs while I was here. So I'm just going to play two songs. I'm going to play a song of mine that I wrote that's kind of about those times when I was first getting into poetry. It's coming out of there, right? You can hear that? Okay. Well, there's lots of friendly people in almost every little town. But I don't want to talk to them. Man, I'd probably just bring them down. And I'd have to be some kind of sadist to want to try and communicate this feeling. But frankly, you seem like the kind of folk that could use some bad advice. Don't quit your day job. Don't stay out all night. Don't waste your money. Don't waste your life. And never, ever, ever trust a soul. Don't drop out of high school and college. Start a rock and roll band. Don't rent a big old dirty house on Edith Street. Move in with all your friends. They couldn't pay the rent. Again and again. And again. Don't make that face. It'll get stuck that way. Don't fall in and out of love just to fall in love again. And never, ever, ever trust a soul. Don't chase your dreams, or you'll be asleep all day. Don't you learn how to swim, you might drown that way. And don't trust a sign telling you things are gonna change. Yeah, don't trust nobody, no how, nowhere, no way. And never, ever, ever trust a soul. Even if it crosses its heart and it swears it'll do no wrong. 'Cause some songs, they don't last so long. They'll swear they're your friend until they end, and then they're gone. So long. So long, so long. Hey, thanks. Well, I usually end with that song, and I think I'm going to do that now. But thank you guys so much for coming today, and we're going to flip the order on the record. And so first up, I'd like to welcome the poet that I knew the least when this project started and has grown near and dear to my heart, Mr. James J.
Hello all. All right. Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate it. All right. And one more time for Aaron right there. There we are.
Just in case.
All right. Outstanding. Good to see y'all this afternoon. I'm going to start with a poem called Whiskey Box, Nebraska. It's from a collection of poems called Whiskey Box Poems. And for the folks that I don't know, and come on in if you just come on in and grab a chair. And so for the folks that I don't know, I spent decades in the service industry. My wife and I have a pub down in Arizona, pub and restaurant. And in that time, I've had a chance to run across all kinds of folks and that sort of thing, and it's been absolutely wonderful. I've also had a chance to clean up all sorts of debris and things like that. So one of those things is our whiskey boxes. When you break down the cases that they come in with the whiskeys, they get all kinds of interesting cardboard boxes. And so I started cutting these things up years ago just on a whim and using them kind of like postcards to mail to people. And one of the folks actually I would mail to pretty often was Mark Gibbons. And so a lot of these things I had no intention with. They were sort of ideas about poems, a few lines here and there. And I'd mail them out there, and sometimes they come back. Sometimes they just kind of go wherever poems go and lines that you forget about go. And either way, Mark actually helped collect all these things and get this book out, and was actually essential in getting all the getting it out. And so that's just been a blast. I ended up getting a lot of these notes together and making a few different poems over the years about them. So this one's called Whiskey Box, Nebraska. I found first the scanned arrest record for my great-grandpa through the genealogy research to which I subscribed monthly. Bad check writing. 16 years old, Nebraska. The family had come down on tough times. He only found the ledgers, claimed his confession to the court. It's not like he pilfered them, firsthand. Buy of this what you want. He's not my great-grandpa anyway. He's yours. Your family had come down on those old and familiar tough times. Whatever makes you feel better, keep. The rest toss back. So many tiny fish hooked on a wide sea of bad luck. You passed those bum checks so you'd be in a tail, whatever the role. Because you went quietly, the sheriff kept the cuffs loose. The rest of the evidence is my record. So that's one of the things that I end up doing with these. Yeah, thank you. With these, as far as working with people for decades. The other thing I do is I've had the privilege to teach with the Missoula Writing Collaborative and work with them with kids as young as 4 or 5 years old. And of course, with adults too, through those programs. I think last or two winters ago, I had someone that was well into their 80s. It was just an absolute blast to work with people. And what I'm amazed about is there's just a certain, I guess, grace or dignity that people have about them that is just incredible. And so there's so many things that we go through that's unseen, right? So whether it be, cancer diagnosis or, all kinds of family medical stuff. I don't even want to say all this stuff out loud and put bad voodoo in the air, but we all know, right? These tough things. Yeah, we still go on making sure the mail gets checked. We say please and thank you, and we get all our things done with a certain grace and beauty that nobody knows about. One of the things I think with poetry, what I'm most interested in are those moments that go by unseen and that really show the wonderful character that humanity possesses. So that's what I try to do with a lot of these things here. This one's a little longer poem called Checkpoint Charlie. My dad was in the Army. We bounced around a bunch. as a kid. We were in West Berlin when there was such a thing as West Berlin, and Checkpoint Charlie was the famed or infamous gate that you pass from east to west and vice versa during that time period. So this is a memory of being at that gate in the winter. Checkpoint Charlie, Berlin, 1976 winter. We weren't to get out of the car. Last week, 3 civilians had been shot in the gutted no man's land in Berlin. One may have been a woman, or was it a child? Either way, all were well dead as they ran, possessed by the hope of how to best hop barbed wire. So, no matter the length of the line, no matter the weight, we weren't to get out of the car, waiting in the cold at the shut-tight gate, its face of iron idling to move from west to east or the other way, which didn't particularly matter as no one was going anywhere. My mother sat shotgun, my little brother and I in the back seat under a wool army blanket. And then my father, strong as Abraham Lincoln in school books, veteran of Vietnam, opened his car door. Like a pine who had a mind to stroll, he picked his way through the smoke of gasping tailpipes. Seeing only the back of her short brown hair, my mother's fear couldn't be hidden as she repeated, "It'll be all right." She repeated to us, to the air. My arms wrapping the blanket tighter over my brother's shoulders, I leaned forward, spied 4 Soviet guards, more in the towers too, I figured. My father walked with the 4 guards into the gray-walled office. Gone. My eyes peered for clues. No man's land pinched us in, the zone where houses fall flat, concrete cracks, twisted steel, and what I thought might be a stove, or was the word for it boilermaker. Heaved in the debris, hunkered, it seemed like someone could live in that thing, or at least take a break. Did a yet unseen, unshot, uncaught boy hide behind its lid? I stared there, looking for that boy who made a life of soot and steel until the car door popped open. In with the iced air plopped my father. He tossed a Soviet belt buckle, reddened hammer and sickle crossed onto the dashboard, then turned the ignition. Cars that had hoarded their gas in desperate tanks followed suit, and all slowly rolled on the road. No words, a couple of nods as we passed the guards, their boyish face in hard uniforms, their rifles with crescent moon clips where they kept all the bullets. Years later, my mother a DJ on a radio station in the high desert in Arizona. My father teaching junior high in Los Angeles, where he now lived. He'd tell us stories from the days we were all together. What about this buckle? My brother fiddling with the glove box on a different heap of old car as we rode down PCH. Windows down. Those Soviets aren't bad, my dad would say. They don't want to be killed or kill anybody any more than we did in Vietnam. But of course they did. They did kill and die and live to go back to wherever they will. My father and brother talking details from the ever-changing past. But the dark stove, the Boilermaker, the boy scrunched inside, unseen and unknown, and my mother's fear formed the unflinching memory I recall. What can we ask of any memory that won't abandon its hideout? In the end, we got the buckle and to leave. What the Soviets got in exchange, I don't know that part of the story. But these Berlin guards, my dad would add as we parked at the beach, those guys were bad news. He'd shake his head, pop the hatch, and pull out 2 boogie boards. For them, it was personal. No talking to men like that. Checkpoint Charlie. I do like to mention, as far as that idea of this this certain grace and beauty that people have that goes by unseen, because it makes sense when doing a poetry reading and a vinyl-inspired poetry reading on a Saturday afternoon with all the chairs full in here to mention such things, because I assume that about all of you, right? It seems like this is just something that's a little bit different than what's going on elsewhere. So thank you all for being here and making the time, especially with watching kids, with kids that are a little bit older, maybe you can get a break, taking care of parents, whatever it is that you do, managing to free up time and being here today. I very much appreciate that. There are a few people scattered throughout the room that are familiar with the Irish sport of hurling, so I'm going to change my tact for the hurlers in the room. And people know what that game is. It's a little stick and ball game. It's played by maniacs. They do it here in town. So this is about one of those maniacs, a guy called Waterford Vinny. And one of the things about him and these sort of these guys that you run across is that the best people in hurling or any sport, or you can imagine also with I think about with music or any of the arts, these type of things, and sports and the arts go back and forth pretty interchangeably for me, is that the best players, the best musicians are the ones that are most generous and that are inspiring that next generation to play and to make things better, right? To make things better for that next generation. So this is about Waterford Vinny, who does just that. It's called the high sneak. The high sneak is what the Kilkenny coaches call this steal on training tapes. This unretired hurler's a Waterford man, and the slitter he swipes from a charging forward half his age slides into the mile-high, wide-open air, where he clears it with a slap of the ash, the worthy adversary gone. He backpedals on the pitch. Mark your man, break on it, good, good. Later in the tents, the makeshift pub, staked to the trounced ground, a local reporter interviews him, asks him, what was the best part of the tournament? A thin and enthusiastic crowd of young hurlers wielding plastic cups of Guinness. I know that's a sin to have Guinness in a plastic cup, but they do it. Wielding plastic cups of Guinness, pauses to listen to his reply. He thinks of a top-notch move for every player on his team. Bold moments for each of them to remember. He names the youngest fellow on the team the man of the match. And what was your best move? A fan blurts out. Like a game show where lights and studio audiences clamor and confuse players, the unretired hurler freezes, blank, then sips from his cup, obscuring his face like a makeshift helmet. Oh, I don't know. He turns away. A smile almost begins. He replies, there might have been one. That's for Waterford Vinny in Denver in 2023. All right, that's going to take me to my through my reading section. Well, thank you all. Again, thanks for taking the time to be here on this Saturday afternoon. I very much appreciate it. And also wanted to mention Bryn back there. Thank you. Can we get a round of applause for him in fact in fiction also? They're selling books and as well, and we're all happy to sign them and those kind of things. And also with this lineup too, that it's just honored to be here, because I'll echo what Aaron was saying about how you can walk around Missoula minding your own business and run across some of the best writers you're going to find on the planet, including some of them are even out here. You know, I'm looking at the ones, now all the ones I know, there's a bunch of writers out here that aren't even coming up that I very much admire. So it's just an absolute honor to be up here with this crew of writers and being able to kick things off. So without me going on and on, thank you all very much. And it is my absolute honor to invite Dave Thomas up next. Dave, you want to head up? Yeah.
Good afternoon. I was just sitting there thinking that.
You mind if I adjust that a little bit? Aaron's gonna adjust a little bit, I think.
I was just sitting there thinking, you know, I've been doing stuff like this for over 50 years now. You know, who gives a shit, but. Well, I just here's some stuff that I haven't really read before, so I thought I'd give it a shot. just a handful of poems here. I've been sitting on this one for a couple of years, uncertain as to whether or not it actually fills the bill, but I'll give you a chance to hear it and you can decide, I guess. It's called The Mayor. This Jacob's Island bench offers a hint of shade. A backhoe grumbles and rattles nearby, working the irrigation ditch. Summer heat intense, but I need my stroll, a trudge to loosen sludge as the backhoe does. I learned the actual fact of his death on East Front a couple of days ago. Walking, a sack of groceries in hand, I heard my name called, and a woman I know filled me in on the dire news. That he was in bad shape was old news, hope of recovery slim. I knew him as a large young fella, maybe a senior at the university. I dropped in for a taste of academia after many years away. We were taking Bill Beavis's Montana Writers course. I suppose we both fancied ourselves as such and wanted to know if we'd pass muster against the masters, Guthrie, Welch, Hugo, and Doig. I fumbled my way from poem to poem. He took up journalism and a column in the Missoulian, served on the city council. The town got to know him and elected him mayor. He governed with an even hand, but knew water was crucial and took on corporate America to win the rights to the water we drink. Though advocates of private property and profit at every turn were perhaps not so thrilled, yet he prevailed under the law and a historical error corrected. Private property would win out in other circumstances, though, and save for its northwest corner, a cultural compromise, the Merc became piles of bricks and rubble from which the Marriott rose in rectangular splendor, the ghosts of founding fathers Warden, Higgins, and McCormick dancing with glee. The pressures and tensions of dancing between public and private interests hard to imagine. A whiskey bottle proved handy for a time, but that has its own price, as he knew and sobered up. But then he watched with the rest of us his health decline and fade. The city he watched so carefully for years and years hums in the summer heat, but the future looms uncertain beside our trudging feet. This is a poem, one of the poems that Aaron recorded.
Put that mic closer to your mouth.
All right, I always have trouble with these things. This is called Ode to Higgins Bridge. Oh, there it is. Oh, all right, sorry if you couldn't hear that other one. But Ode to Higgins Bridge. The old pipe guardrail, its silver paint worn to red primer and bare spots bent with collision, kept many a stumbling drunk alive as equally drunk drivers careened across the bridge. That guardrail gone now in favor of fresh concrete and new black painted steel stanchions. I put in a lot of miles on my feet and legs crossing that bridge, named for a founding father, or conniving rogue if you prefer. In varied states of mind, time yawing and warping, midnight moonlight or bright daylight shining on Lolo Peak and Blue Mountain, the bridge now renamed in honor of a Salish warrior, Beartrax, whose descendants crossed north from the Bitterroot with Charlot over 100 years ago and climbed Evero Hill to the current reservation. The rebuilt bridge, wider now, more room for pedestrians and bicyclists as we continue to plod from day to day, threading together life in Missoula, ghosts of old streetcars and unshod ponies hovering with every step. Well, this is a elegy for an old friend of mine named Phil Atkins. Memorial Day for Phil. We seldom saw each other in recent years, but I used to introduce you as the man who taught me how to be a beatnik. A bard of the open road, you stayed in the mountains as much as possible, fishing the deep, cold streams, avoiding the temptations of town, forsook alcohol after many years of imbibing, disdaining the corporate complicity you saw involved, but never turned down a good smoke. You once said you thought you'd figured out how to live forever, but I guess not. You were very skinny the last time I saw you, but had survived many traumas, including a drunken fall from the yet-to-be-completed Higgins Bridge in '64 that would have killed anyone else. You did 4 years in the Navy that radicalized you despite the hierarchy. You worked the docks in Seattle for grub money and a good toke. Though you'd earned a degree in social work, you knew society from the bottom up. And while a small inheritance eased your way in later years, you refused to compromise your stance. A hard-nosed Zenbo who followed no creed except to aid your fellow man and fish the shadowy riffles for a slippery trout. Every Martin Luther King Day, I try to write a little poem as a gesture in homage or what. And this is one I wrote last year called Just Another Mark on the Calendar. Well, Dr. King, here we are again, celebrating your life while the presidential inauguration proceeds. Today, a convicted felon takes office for the first time. A man twice impeached during a previous term, elected again by massive expenditures of dark money and soul-bruising negative advertising on TV, co-opting and misdirecting voter discontent and anger. A bright, cold day otherwise, mountain snow shimmering against blue sky, ice edging the river I walk beside, remembering your eloquence in support of the disadvantaged, the marginalized, once more at elevated risk as bluster and bullshit rule the day. This is I used to do a lot of walking, but my feet are beginning to wear out, so I do a lot of sitting on benches now. And when they were remodeling the transfer center for Mountain Line last summer, I was sitting around over there one afternoon, and I just happened to put together this little progression of images called A Bench in Summer. Two trees that failed to make it through the winter stand stark and tall against blue morning sky. Wisps of cloud and a jet contrail fading as the day heats up. Another jet cuts a trail above the horizon, then fades from view. A single engine plane grinds toward the airport. People amble by and the buses begin pulling in. A young lady sits beside me on this shady bench. I had to put on clothes to visit my sister, she said. Do I look pretty? A few days later, the trees were cut down. Well, I'll finish up with this little poem from a couple of summers ago regarding an incident over on the Jefferson River. You might have read about it in the paper. I call this Eating and Eaten. A few days ago, otters attacked 3 women floating the Jefferson River east of here. Weary of human intrusion, the slick-furred mammals finally assert their primacy of habitat. Can't go on vacation for the summer. The women got chewed up pretty bad. No particular fault of theirs. Wrong place, wrong time. This fuse, burning for years, finally ignites. Amphibian rage. This is our water, their muscular instinct proclaims. A couple of hundred miles away here, a cloudy afternoon darkens the river, running midsummer low, surface free of floaters. This late in the afternoon, thunderheads building in the west, a cool breeze picking up, the taste of choke cherries tart and wild on my teeth. Well, I guess I'm done for now. I guess it looks like up next is my good old friend Mark Gibbons, one or two former poet laureates in Montana, with us today, and here he is, live and in person.
Oh, man. The Missoula Poet Laureate, David E. Thomas. And always has been. Check, check, check. How am I doing?
Yeah, you like that?
Good?
You like
Yeah.
where it's at?
Sure. I was earlier telling a couple of old friends I hadn't seen in a long time that the last time I was in the library was over in this other room, and I read a poem. I read poems with Robert Lee and Sheryl Noethe, the other Montana poet laureate, who's reading with you today, with us today. And my next door neighbor, who I lived next door to for like 23 years, she had never heard me read. She read a few poems, and I'd given her a couple of different books, and she said, like, do you have to use those words? And I'd say, well, I think I do. Yeah, they kind of go along with, what that person is saying, so it kind of has to be, oh, you don't need those words, she said. And so anyway, she came, and I abused her with a few words, but not too many. But she had never heard her. She had never heard me read before, so that was like a near and dear to my heart. She just passed away here a month or so ago at 93. And so she told me this story. One time we were standing in the alley, and I thought, damn, that'd make like a really good poem. And this is an incident that she told that happened in Great Falls. I titled the poem, Showtime. Those slender hands should have played the piano or the violin, modeled clay or jewelry, ladled soup. Hands Hitchcock would have cast in a heartbeat, rest delicate beside the salad fork and teaspoon, patiently awaiting the final word of the grace. His paper route permitted the occasional movie and early morning joy rides in 1950s Detroit dinosaurs, sponged ice dangling from rear view mirrors, keys casually left in the ignition, invitations to drive beyond the mundane. He'd seen Psycho the day before. Did he remember it in black and white, the butcher knife flashing over and over, her eyes closed, shampoo in her hair, the shower curtain yanked open, her open-mouthed scream, water streaming, darkening in the bottom of the tub, pooling and flowing down the drain, those fading fingers descending a tile wall. No one saw it coming, least of all the boy's mother, bludgeoned in her bed, then dragged downstairs and laid out on the living room floor. White nightgown spattered black. Miles away on a fishing trip, the father knew the way we know things we cannot know. Something was seriously wrong. He drove home, but found the Bates Motel. Norman and the car were gone. How is it that things come to us and leave us? Oh, the terrible beauty of human hands. Compassion has to be born. The bloody hands of Cain, our grasp on letting things go. None of us are clean above it all. None of us swim the dark waters alone. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. On a day like today, Ron, you should be up on top of that. Where'd the crocus come from? Sentinel? Oh, okay. Yeah, it's so beautiful. It's amazing beyond the wonderful climate, weird reality that we're in. But thanks for being here today. A couple other things. I thought I'd read this. I got a recording of a thing a few years ago at a book festival that was called Butte, Night of Butte or whatever, and Ed Leahy read, and I got a chance to read a couple of poems. Well, some of the I listened to the whole thing. The guy, Jim Driscoll from Butte, found me and he gave me this recording. So I listened to the whole thing. Pat Williams was there, and all these great readers. Swain Wolf was there and reading their work about Butte. And I had a couple of poems with a little bit of connection to Butte, so I read those. But this one was one poem that is an old poem that I wrote, and it didn't get in the recording. It was the only edit in the entire program for two hours. And I thought, well, that's kind of conspicuous, isn't it? And so, I wrote this poem probably 30 years ago. I don't know, it's been an awfully long time. And I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I don't know where it came from. And a lot of it's probably bullshit. But anyway, it's called, and it's the title of my first book, which I might add, my first book was produced and edited by Mr. James J., who was a publisher for years. He also did a book for Dave Thomas called The Hellgate Wind. Anyway, thank you, James. Connemara Moonshine. The worn luggage of my Irish ancestors sits in the darkest chamber of my heart, stacked dusty, unhinged, but never unpacked. And when I listen alone, holding my breath, I hear whispers calling from trunk to glen, uprisings green as the 12 pins and cool as moonshine on Lake Connemara, March evenings when no one knows. My grandfather said his daily prayers in Gaelic away from the church. His fingers worked the rosary beads. He hung above his head. He hung above his bed, just over his head, blood lucky as an ocean of ale. Adrift in my shanty ship of fool dreams, blue drunk on a frozen sea, this legacy of liquid terror and pride is stuck between absolute zero and steam, tears cold in my burning veins. Insane messengers of impending doom, bottles of Bushmills, smooth as gasoline, comfort the combustible marriage between Jesus and the devil himself in my mind. If the bottle's half full, I'm only half empty. But no, my rage will go wrong, so I'll drink till ice ignites the song, burning hotter than the fires of hell in my gut, and cry for the love of Jesus H. Suffering Christ, what the fuck do you want me to do? Just one more time, I'll try to hide like a leprechaun circus bear? Do you suppose he's happy behind the bars, tipping bottles and dancing in clothes? I must dry the blind Madonna's eyes, pack my bags for Butte and go. Decide to be my mother's son and know my father's moon will rise once more, St. Patrick's Day. So you know the word that got edited there. Nobody says fuck in public and gets away with it. So. Well, not back then maybe. I have a couple that are in. I have a new manuscript. All these poets today are Foothills Publishing poets. That's a little poetry press in upstate New York that made its way out here 2009, 2010, something like that. Dave was in the first flight of books they published, and I think I was in the second flight, and then Sheryl, and then recently James has a book with them. So this next book of mine will be a Foothills book, and it should be out later this year. I thought I would read just a handful of things that are in that. And this one, if you want to talk, I mean, inappropriate, yes, I guess I strive to be inappropriate, I think. Obviously, here we are in a moment of public, I'm going to be inappropriate again. But I'm doing this for my wife because she thought that I should, because she likes this kind of thing. That's why she married me, I guess. You know. So this is called The Hungry Man Blues. I likes it in the morning, and I takes it afternoons. I eats it after supper till my honey pot she swoons. I bangs the pots and opens her cans, swaller all she's got and all she can stands, 'cause I'm a piggy, Daddy, and Mama loves to cook. I bellies up to her spread and it's lip smacking good. Then I flops my big ass back in that easy chair, full up and out of gas, nothing on but underwear. My baby brings me a bromo, reclines my lazy boy, serves me her sweet cherry pie, I devour with sloppy joy. I'm her hungry sugar man and her prowling salty dog. When she asks for the pork, I slaughters her hog. I could end this nonsense by shutting off the lights. Don't worry about the mess, 'cause we'll be up all night, licking our fingers and sucking on bones. Her meat's so delicious, I eats it all till it's gone. Yes, her meat's so delicious, I eats it all till she's gone. Oh, that's naughty, I think. Now, okay, couple more. This is like kind of the stuff that ends this book, and this one I dedicated to John Prine, who was like a personal hero, like Aaron Jennings, and so it's called Pundits and Fools. The literate man, the educated analyst, had it completely right. But he couldn't relate it to the crowd gathered around their palms, scoffing at the idea of reading way too many finger scrolls of high-dollar words they were supposed to know, like ideologues and sycophants. Smart-ass disses on all the president's men and malls. He didn't have the balls to say it straight and call them blowhards and brown-nosers, yes-men, the tin-horn greasy fucks clamoring to kiss Trump's ass and feather their own beds. The vines, those climbers, Klingon parasites willing to step on the heads of the elderly dead and let the poor, sick, and forgotten copper tones rot on sidewalks or in their beds till they can be deported or entombed, processed. Remember Soylent Green? the final solution. It's the price people pay for their own stupidity, sloth, and selfishness. Electing an amoral narcissist to direct a caravan of fools. And that's just something that I wrote, in the first go-round, the one we went through the first time this happened. And because it was just so obvious, and John Prine died during the pandemic, and this last one I realized was written, when did the Occupy Wall Street thing happen? That was like 2010 maybe, or something like that, like 15 years ago probably. And I read this and I thought, wow, okay. I wrote this poem, and remember when they had the tents set up down on the courthouse lawn in front of the courthouse, and Debbie Florence was running the table down there, and she had a big board in which people were hanging stuff and publishing stuff for people to read. So I thought, I knew I wanted to put this up, so I went down there and hung this thing up on the wall with everybody else's notes and poems and stories and witness of what all that was about. And so this poem is called, let me do this real quick before I put my lipstick together. So this is just called Right On. Right something, right something, left something, wrong something. What is wrong about something right, something left, something read wrong as woody or a wobbly song? Not simply some thing's power to detest, but something best left unsaid, like the dead. Something wicked this way comes on sale to the highest bidder. Another civic hero, a bloomin' player, a rich man, a political force, a man who speaks and forces listen. Listen. Was that sound a guillotine or a video game execution? Was it the wind slamming a door? Someone closing a hatch? Perhaps a jailer throwing the switch? Another chilly draft spoiled by virtual reality? Who owns you is better left unsaid. Better to be a slave today, better to be undead. Write the truth in your head or say something, anything, a change from saying nothing. Speak. Speak for your survival. Speak for everyone. It's time for a change. Time for the force to be with us. Time to choose love over money, over fear, over death. Time to love, to trust, to choose to care for one another. It's time today to write something about love, about justice, about living a good life. It's time to right the selfish wrongs in the land of the greedy free. It's time to write something, to be brave, to stand up and write the story. It's time to be something to say. Thank you. So, to close this out before the whole record sale and book party begins, thank you all for coming again. And now, the great closer, Sheryl Noethe.
Thank you, Mark.
You're so welcome. Is this, let me, all right?
Mark powered through this book. He took my manuscript and he edited every stupid thing I did, commas, periods, punctuation. He fixed it all. So it's called The Science of Coincidence, and the only problem with this beautiful book is that when you put hand lotion on and then read it, it gets all kind of shiny and sloppy. So The copies I brought to sell I haven't petted, so they'll be fine for you. Another thing that I want to say is, if you have someone that you love, treasure every second you have with them like a jewel. Adore them and appreciate the fact that they're gone. So, love each other. So my first poem is Instructions to the Child. 1. After all those killings, we dialed our sons to warn them. Vulnerable boys perceived as danger are in danger. One particular night of slayings, I called my nephew to remind him again. Survive. Put both hands flat on the dashboard. Yes, say yes, sir. Don't reach. Be calm. Stay alive. Better yet, don't drive or go outside. He soldiered in deserts of burning oil, served a tour in that Cuban prison, designed computers for airplanes. He studies quantum physics. I have photographs of him in his navy whites, daring and proud. Now he stays in the small bedroom in my mother's house, keeps an eye on Grandma, rides the bus to school, but none of that matters. Reduced to one single skin, one faceless face. 2. You don't imagine yourself blindsided on the ground, choked. You never considered getting shot in the heart on the street, beside your car, next to your children. You can't see yourself. Fear, blood foam on the brain. It's the same on both sides in war, only the names are different. 3. Trained like little soldiers to be men, bleeding out on the road. My baby! The woman screams his name, held back and restrained by the officers. Take what is irreplaceable, what you love most. Take the best of you. Give it to a cackling hyena. Give it to the dirt. You too can shrink the name of your dead child. My nephew is black. He lives in Minneapolis. So I'm always, he goes, you've been warning me for 20 years. Yeah, you have to. Okay. Oh, thank you. Her broken hands. My friend of many years, next to me on the couch, cries, cradling her hands on her lap over the old broken bones in her fingers and wrists. Defensive wounds on a child no doctor was ever called. When she complained about the beatings and her throbbing bones, her mother told her, nobody wants to hear about what they did when they were drunk. Nobody wants to hear about it. I'm going to lighten my tone a little bit. But you know, I was supposed to gather some poems for a collection about death. And I don't know. All my poems are about death. Einstein Redu. Since his death, he's learned to fly back in time. He gets smaller and smaller until he disappears. The wind musses his hair. He slides in, spills his coffee, and sneezes. He wants to talk about war. In my astral form, shivering at the pool of planets, I am tempted by those black holes sucking daylight. A roller coaster ride in the vacuum of a light bulb. Annoyed at my metaphors, he crosses his arms and glares. He blinks. He waits. His eyebrows twitch like a pony's. He's dressed in a suit coat and sneakers. I mentioned Freud. The sleeping mind disregards past and present, identity and gender, moves effortlessly in space-time like that rogue electron we seek and find every time, everywhere we look, buzzing in cells and the clock, the acorn, the near galaxy, circling neutrons. We are not happy with stable protons. We prefer to leave a flickering light that says we were here once and then gone. Our tiny orbits leave us blissful, thinking this is real. When he leaves, he doesn't use the door. I knew you'd love Einstein. How to control the universe. You are the dead star. A solar system is your ghost. A hollowed out space where there are no bodies or moons. The material is missing. We live on a debris field organized by the forces of attraction, electric, magnetic, gravitational. Assemblies of dust particles clump together into vast constellations, dragging quarks, gluons, and particles in a fluctuating state of formlessness. Collisions and interactions arise only when we look for them. Our molecules excite patterns and waves. They rise to our expectations as soon as we recognize them. This is how to control the universe. This one was a big hit in my poetry reading at the Art Museum, so I'm gonna have to read it to you. Mark, you know which one it is. It's called Genitalia. Smaller and better built, specialized, tucked away for protection. Circular slides, long wet velvet swells into a lotus, a swan of custard, talcum soft warm tissue, grips, clenches, stops the world, repeats, slowly cools, ticking. At the moment liquid becomes solid, convalescent odalesque, waiting for the tide to go out. You know, I just think more women should write about their genitals. Because otherwise, you know who's going to write about them. And they don't really know. All right. You know, I did have all these picked out and had my fingers and pieces of paper for the best ones, and we'll get there. We'll get there. And I'll cheer you up a little, I hope. Cold fusion. Do you remember when scientists were trying to come up with cold fusion as a new source of energy? It was a big stink. But here is what I know about it. Cold fusion. The apparatus exploded overnight when no one was present. Partially vaporized radium electrodes scorched the concrete floor. Reports differ on the details of the damage in late autumn of 1984. Forthcoming details were of limited help or only added to the confusion. Excess heat was not measured. The number of neutrons detected was small. Darker sides of human nature grew in the minds of those involved. Cold fusion's fantastic approach was low-key, but only muddied the waters. A wonderful breakthrough by chemists, costing only a few $100s. All the news programs carried the story, along with the swift and thunderous reactions of the scientific community. Attempts to reproduce the work, all stymied by the recipe of electrolytes in 10 mineral salts. Scientists did what they should. They tried to repeat the experiment. The price spiked almost immediately. then fell as researchers quickly identified issues with the information, a lack of control, unrealistic gamma ray spectrum, and fewer electrons than predicted. The excess heat should have generated enough radiation to poison the researchers, enough energy to break 2 million chemical bonds. In a temporary suspension of certain bylaws, a symposium was hastily called. Effects of other collaborators were unanimously negative. Another study called the research spurious, to be ignored. The results were viewed as statistically meaningless. Inconsistencies in the data suggest that instead of fusion, cells were intentionally spiked with tritium to satisfy the expectations of researchers. The claim of the scientists was redacted after it was found the neutron director was heat sensitive to the hands that held it. They were just measuring their own heat. Particle. Only when the air and water are poisoned and the animals gone, you will learn that you can't eat money. Native American quote 1. To define a structure, warm it with your gaze. Look for lines that want edges in the form of a tragedy or a great sound, nonfiction or instrumental. Use the voice of a friend. 2. Stretch a point into a line, square the line, cube it, position it in space. Give it a spin, a color, try to name it. After you use up most nouns and verbs out of descriptors, identify the velocity, flavors, and qualities. Move on to the negative numbers, if you can get to 0. If 0 exists, the old philosophers are tired of arguing about it. Forced back into the third dimension, charred beyond belief, human debris is dying with every breath, just as we are now, thinking only of breaking the atom and accumulating value. They couldn't fry or broil the dollar bills crisply enough without burning them. When boiled, they chewed like shoes. Marinating in oils and sauces only caused the ink to run. No one could remember what the letters meant anyway. It was too tough to digest, so they gave up. There's one in particular I want to read to you about my mother, who gave me life, birth, and died in my arms. And it was so lovely. She was blissful. She kept going, oh! And I was, so it was a beautiful, beautiful death. But somebody stole it from my book. Okay. I could read genitalia again. Okay. In our lifetimes, we swallow, on average, 8 spiders in our sleep. Our lips, aphrodisiacs, are taken for orchids, too. Microscopic particles in a vast pool of soup, moving in waves and strings, dark, shimmering mucus where occasional lights flash. Only 14 light years away, you are sober. The human psyche operates in 13 dimensions. Our bodies have only 3. A time shift, a magnetic surge, gamma rays, or solar storms. It could have been simply a slight bump in the exchange. Light bulbs exploded as if on cue, and the God particle finally reveals itself to the particle blaster. A sudden adjustment too fast to perceive, and then, to him, it became a room in a cafe in Paris. Look over here, I said. Come back, I'm here. We just barely missed each other. 1/200th of a second, an eon. Translation missed a fraction of a decimal. Mail is waiting for me in my sleep, and I'm afraid to open it. trying to find the poem for my mother because I feel like I honor her every time I read it. Oh, God. Oh, and Steve McQueen. I got a good Steve McQueen. Isn't it short? I never thought I'd read about Steve McQueen, but I did. Okay. Steve McQueen, 1959. The leather straps of the holster braced the long gun barrel across his thigh, an extended version of all the other cowboys' sidearms. His pants are tighter, too. Even his low-slung ammo belt is thicker. His bullets are faster. He is never without his leather jacket. His horse runs far ahead of the posse. He could always tell if an accent was real or fake. He looked very small with washed blue eyes, sweet mouth, balancing on his motorcycle, hand-rolled cigarettes held in his lips, that evocative, long-lost gaze. What came later was the dark bride. Much too early, she stepped from behind the curtain, with her long, beautiful legs and red lips beckoning him to lie down on his shield and climb upon it. Warriors, they wanted to die on their shield. I don't know if Steve did that, but okay. Here is a poem from my mother. Skull as lantern. Cold didn't bother of us. We lay there all night, moving through this incarnation into sand or glass. I perfumed her and sang in her neck. It was not yet light when her breathing worsened, and when the bliss took her away, I wrapped her in white linen blankets, carried her onto the long boat, pushed it in the water and set it on fire, sailing in the wind toward Valhalla. But first there were a number of events. Gravity gently smoothed her face and her skin cooled. She paled. She became the same color as the sheets. White light blasted from behind her closed eyes. She became the women of every generation. I could see them in her bones. She took me back to the Norse goddess whose skull she gave me, made from her own teeth. A lantern of evolution, only available at the dying. So I've lost. Am I finished? Have I read my 15?
You're the last one, so you can go as long as you want.
Oh, stop! Don't egg me on! Okay, I'll just de facto that the flesh of a fish contains fresh water. She stood on the deck, sick with regret, thought about some promises she'd made, swam effortlessly to shore, her head covered in black ships, carrying the remains of the dead king and all his jewels, shipped across oceans to an island at war directly connected to the travesty. To be wanted, more blinding than daylight, that need to be desired. Mind-bending gravity, strong as the moon, I swoon. You must not insult the integrity of the wife. 3. Almost something, almost nothing. There is only the approach to zero. In an infinite state, would it exist? However undetected, almost nothing. There's more to come and there's never enough. We find nothing. It's too full of particles, drifting and spinning in colors, qualities, and flavors, running out of names and numbers. Every time you think you're at the end, it's only the middle. It's the cleft. It's the intermediate. You've been a lovely audience. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. You're so wonderful. Let's just stay and party.
That's what we should do. Well, I just want to say thanks again to everybody that came out today. while sitting here, I realized I also had a completely selfish motivation that, when I was really shocked to see so many people here because I thought I was going to get my own private reading. And it's really nice to see so many people are on the same page as I am and that think that this is important work and these are important people and we should celebrate them. So let's have a round of applause for our lovely poets. Thanks to the library for hosting us. Thanks to Fact and Fiction. Buy some poetry books. If you would like to come buy a record, there are 37 of them, and that's it. And I think the next step for this is that I'm going to get each of these poets to nominate, throw somebody else under the bus, and maybe we'll do another one of these a few months down the road. So, thank you so much, everybody.